everyone, welcome back to my channel, J Dreaming. My name is Haley J. Jones, and today I'm going to be sharing the story about how I asked for a raise and got it. Okay, so in this video, I'm going to be sharing how I asked for a raise, why I got that raise, what I did to maybe help my chances of getting that raise, and then also kind of sharing those tips and tricks with you so that hopefully we can all get raises because raises are great. I am a marketing manager or marketing director for a neurosurgery division. So that also has like specialty clinics. So we don't just do neurosurgery, but we do things like orthopedic surgery, we do pain management, medication management, comprehensive therapy, like just a lot of things. But so I am in charge of marketing for that division for that entire company. So that spans between 3 locations as well. So as you can imagine, it's pretty busy. I am having like a total ball doing it though. I love what I do. It allows me to be creative, but it also allows me to have that kind of like business administration and like business development area that I'm really interested in. So it's been great. I started out as a marketing specialist. Well, actually, I started as an intern, and then they offered me a position, and then I was a marketing specialist for about a year and a half before I got my promotion, which I'll kind of talk about how like asking for a raise actually turned into a whole different promotion, which is great. But so I also want to share with you how I went through the process of asking for a raise, what kinds of things I said, what kinds of things I didn't say or I avoided saying. I think it's really important to talk about it so that other people feel a lot more prepared when they go in to have that conversation with their boss, because it can be intimidating. It can be like really awkward, honestly. So I want to go through that with you guys. If you have any questions at all, feel free to leave them in the comments below. So I want to talk about the first kind of step that you want to take when you're thinking about asking for a raise. So the very first one is you want to plan. And what I mean by plan is you want to kind of look at the calendar year and ask yourself a couple of questions. So one, when did you start working here? That's a huge one. So I had worked at my company for about a year and a half before I asked for my first raise. As long as you're like, I would say a year in, if you're not more than a year, sometimes it's tough because you do want to have basis when you're asking for that raise. So you want to be able to say, hey, I improved this company, I'm adding value to this company, I think I should in turn get more compensation. So you really want to make sure it's at least a year, I would say. Some companies, I guess it could be 6 months. You want to read your company culture on that. But I would say a year is probably a good rule of thumb. Anything more than that and you're like pretty reasonable to ask for a pay increase. The second thing you want to think about is when the last time it was that you asked for a raise. So in this case, it was my first time like literally ever asking anyone for a raise because it was my first job. So if it again is within the last year, if your pay has been kind of reevaluated within the last year, it's probably not a great idea to ask for a raise. I would wait until that 1 year mark because you really don't want your company like giving you a raise and then like 2 weeks later you're like, hey, but can I have more? You know, it's just like not a good thing, and you want to make sure that you are being viewed as like a team player and you're grateful. So I would say again, you want to kind of ask yourselves like, okay, when did I start? When's the last time I got a raise or asked for a raise? The third thing you want to kind of take into consideration is when your company actually gives out raises. So my company reevaluates pay at the end of each year when they also do bonuses. So that is decided, and I'm talking calendar year here, so Q4. So that's decided like I would say in November. So you really want to make sure you get ahead of the ball because also they need enough. And when I say they, I'm talking about like your executives or whoever makes the big decisions. They are going to need that like notice too to kind of financially plan, because if they're not aware that you want a raise or they, didn't plan on giving you one just out of their own accord, they have to financially plan for that because that money has got to come from somewhere. So you really want to make sure that you get into their office or you get a meeting with them about a month before really raises are even talked about. So I would say I don't know, maybe a month to 2 weeks. So I went in early October because they were planning on kind of going over all that stuff in November. And I just wanted to make sure that I sat down and got in front of the right people earlier than later, obviously, because you don't want to be too late. That's a really awkward conversation, I'm sure. So if anything, I was a little bit too early, but it really didn't hurt the process at all. And especially if your company isn't great with communication or things tend to take a little bit more time or anything like that, you really want to make sure that you get ahead of the ball in that sense. So in my position, when I talked about additional responsibilities and things like that, I had actually kept a list. You don't have to do this. But I actually kept a list of every single thing outside of my job description that I was either asked to do, or I thought would be helpful to do. It was always things that I was asked to do, just to be a team player. And just who I am, I do them, and that's all great and fine, and I love helping my company, but at the end of the day, we're here to work, and I want compensation. So with that being said, I made sure that I also included that list as well, all the additional responsibilities and roles that I had kind of adopted, I guess, as I went into my role. And how my responsibilities were growing and how I was growing as an individual and being able to manage so many more additional responsibilities. Also, you want to think about your company culture and what your company values. So, for example, we have something called the core values. I'm sure a lot of companies have something like this. It's basically internal values that they want each employee to exemplify. So this might be loyalty, this might be execution, this might be love or patient care for the medical field, things like that. So I went through each of our core values and I also showed how I exemplified those with specific instances. So that's really important. You want to get specific. You want to really handpick things that you did yourself and that they'll be able to go back and look at or ask someone about. You want to make sure that you do it in a way that's readable and easy to understand. So I used a Google Slides presentation. It was about 17 slides long. After personal experience, you do not need that many slides. It made it really easy for me to, one, have notes. So if I got nervous, I wasn't really flustered and just started talking, because I tend to do that sometimes. But it was nice to stay on track and to have specific talking points, and also to be able to visually show lists of things that I've done, of certain projects that I've done. With marketing, we do a lot of graphic design and posters and flyers and things like that. So I made sure to include sample work and that kind of stuff, just to give someone a concrete, something they can hold in their hand, example of what I'm doing at this company. It's also great because then my superior went and shared it with the people that they need to share it with in order to get approval for my raise. So that's something that's really important, is you want to make sure that the information that you are conveying is easily transferable to someone else without it being misconstrued or anything like that. Because a lot of times in companies, especially larger companies, you're really going to have multiple people kind of with their hands in the pot making decisions about raises, bonuses, all of that kind of stuff. So once you have put everything into some kind of presentation or some kind of slideshow or whatever it may be, once you've gathered all of your evidence, you want to go ahead and present that evidence. So there's a couple ways you can do this. I would recommend doing it in person. I think that is so important. I was actually complimented by my boss because it was the first time that anyone had ever come in and actually asked for a raise and showed them why they deserve to get that raise. Okay, so once you have all of your evidence together and you are in front of the right person, the next thing you want to do is ask for a raise. So basically what I did and how I set up my presentation is I started with gratitude. I said, I'm so excited for where this company is going. The future looks bright. I can't wait. I'm loving this company. I intend to retire from this company. And I'm so grateful for all the opportunities that you've given me. So I think that really sets kind of the tone for, hey, I'm going to ask you something and it's going to be really important what I ask you, but I first want to take a step back and tell you that I'm grateful for everything that this company's done for me. So after you open with gratitude, you want to go ahead and stake your claim. The last thing you want is your boss sitting there and you're just this like crazy person talking to them and they don't know what you want. So stake your claim. I would try to phrase it in a way that's respectful. So I said something like, I've taken on more responsibility and I was wondering if we could have a conversation about readjusting my compensation at the company. So you want to say something like that. I would hate for someone to just come to me like super aggressively and be like, I deserve more money. That sounds super entitled. That sounds really kind of like very forward. You want it to be a discussion. So after you stake your claim, which is you asking for a raise, so think of it as like your thesis statement, you want to come up with your evidence. So, hey, I would like a raise because of X, Y, and Z. So this is not saying, hey, will you give this to me? This is me saying, hey, I believe I've earned this. What do you think? So this is when I went through the core values and how I exemplified them. Talked about like being a model employee, not being late, not, taking sick days, those types of things. And then I also talked about my additional roles and responsibilities. So it's always good to highlight like 5 major things that you accomplished that really had like some sort of impact on the company. And even if your boss already knows like what you do on a day-to-day basis, it's still good to highlight those and kind of remind them like, hey, these were my 5 like big wins. I think that it kind of just sets you up for like more of a discussion of why you deserve a raise and less of a like ask like, oh, will you please give me a raise? Not based on merit or anything that I did. I just want more money, So it's really important to kind of do all the work for them ahead of time and give them the easy job of just saying yes. I would say stake your claim, give your evidence, and then just sit back. So what you want to do before you kind of just like take a step back is you want to make sure that it's clear what you're asking for and the ball is in their court. So my last slide of my presentation was something like, this is where I am salary-wise now. This is where I want to be. Where do you see me falling on this line? And so it's a question. It's a prompt. It's, hey, this is up to you now. Let's have this conversation. So I just kind of sat back and allowed time for questions. I allowed time to kind of go back over my presentation and say, oh, well, what was slide 7? I want to see that again. Or, I didn't know that you were in charge of this project. Like, tell me more about that. So you really want to let the conversation kind of open up so that you can talk more about all of your supporting evidence and all of that kind of stuff. So the next thing is kind of tough, and I wish I was a little bit more prepared for this, but they're probably not going to be able to give you an answer right away. So it's kind of tough because it's like you built up all this, suspense, and you spent like a month or 2 preparing to ask for this raise, and like you have people that are like praying for you or like texting you and asking you how it went. And you might not get an answer. And so basically my boss told me like, hey, yeah, that's great. I definitely think we can do something for you. I'm not sure exactly what it'll be. I need to go back and, talk to my people, and we'll work something out. So it was really tough because at that point you have all these thoughts running through your head like, okay, well, what if he comes back with a number that, isn't drastically different? Like I was saying, I asked for a pretty extreme raise. do I take it? Do I, try to negotiate? All of those things can be really stressful. Don't worry about them. Like, seriously, do not. Just leave it in their court. If you want to follow up again in like a week and just say, hey, I'm just touching base, like, I haven't heard from you, or do you still need do you need anything from me, or do you still need some time? All of those things are fine. For me, like I said, I asked in early October. I didn't find out until like November, I would say probably early November. And it was amazing. I received more than I asked for. And I received a promotion with that. So from marketing specialist, I was then director of marketing, which is wonderful. And I'm really excited. But with that being said, like, I didn't hear about it for a month because certain things kind of had to fall into place internally for them to be able to promote me and also give me a raise. So those types of things can be really tough, especially because you just had this like really exciting moment and then it feels like it didn't really like come to fruition, or like, certain things didn't happen. It's really important to just trust the process and like keep checking in with your boss, but really try not to pressure them too much, because these things do take time, especially in a larger organization. You're not going to know right away. Things I want to leave you with: be confident. This is your time to brag about yourself. This is your time to really sell the idea of you being an asset to the company. Don't be afraid to make a point. So don't be afraid to actually ask, I would like to reevaluate my compensation. That's really important. You want to make sure that they know why you two are like sitting in this room awkwardly, So, and then the next thing I would say is just make sure that you bring your evidence. Make sure that you do the work for them, that you make it easy for them to say yes. All of those things are really, really, really important. But the biggest thing is just work up the courage to go in and ask. So guys, that is it for this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope that some of you have, maybe written down some tips or some tricks that I've talked about. I hope that I've encouraged you guys to maybe go in and have that conversation with your boss. I'm super glad that I did. And as far as this channel, guys, I am going to be posting as much as I can because I am quarantining currently. So you should see some new content soon. Make sure that you subscribe and then ring your notification bell so that you'll get a notification when I post. And comment down below if you have any questions at all, or if you have something that you'd like me to know. I always read my comments. If you liked this video, please like this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.